We are recording, so please proceed.
Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Francisco-Garcia. I'm the Deputy County Administrator, as well as the Chief Medical Officer for Pima County. We thought it was important to share with you a policy determination that we have made here in the County Administrator's Office. Last week we were all a little bit taken by surprise when we saw the broadly worded executive order that essentially rescinded a lot of the measures that we had put into place in an effort to protect the health and well-being of the people of Pima County during this very sort of serious pandemic. Well, honestly, I was taken by surprise, and one of the things that really sort of worried me the most about this is that the language in that executive order was very explicit. And in fact, articulate the fact that we could not have in place what I believe has been the most meaningful intervention prior to vaccination that we have been able to get going in this county, and that is the requirement for universal mask use when you are in a public setting, when you're in a public venue. For that reason, the county administrator, Mr. Huckleberry, sought the advice and counsel of our county attorney's office, and who concurred that many of the things in the executive order were indeed overturned. However, we believe that that the resolution 2020-96, which was passed by the Board of Supervisors on December 4th, that is our universal mask use resolution, is still in effect. That resolution, as you know, continues to mandate that everyone in Pima County over the age of 5 has to wear a mask unless they have some sort of qualifying exemption and or are able to maintain a physical distance of at least 6 feet. Our opinion is that this continues to be the law of the land in Pima County, both in incorporated and in unincorporated Pima County. We will continue based on this interpretation, based on this conversation, and in consultation with the county administrator, myself and the county attorney, Dr. Cullen, will continue to instruct her health inspectors to continue to enforce a mask mandate at establishments that are regulated by the health department. Those are primarily food establishments and that are preparing or serving food. But understand that the mask mandate is actually more broad than that. It actually applies to other settings, other public settings. The county health department has developed a process by which we receive and adjudicate these complaints. We have kind of a 3 strikes and you're out process where we receive complaints, we call those operators, we work with those operators, we visit those operators, and most of the time, actually, the vast majority of the time, very, very few exceptions, where we've actually had to take in action. We believe that most operators in this county are doing the right thing. We believe that most citizens in Pima County are doing the right thing, and we want to continue to give them the tools that they need to be able to continue to demand that people use masks when they are in public spaces. We believe that this is important, and it is something that we continue to support. I'm going to share with you something that is, before I turn it over to questions, I'm going to share with you something that is part of the reason why we take this so seriously. We don't, the position that we're taking is not an arbitrary position. It's a position that we take because we really believe that people are harmed if we don't. And so I want to show you. Wrong one. I want to show you the latest epidemiologic data from Pima County, which will help you understand why we get so excited about this. Earlier this week, you heard Director Walensky and the president and vice president talk about how it is too soon to loosen up. And here's the local data that I can share with you that is telling me that we cannot loosen up. What you have is the epi curve that you have seen us present ad nauseum from the beginning back in March 4th or so to the present. But I want you to pay attention to the fact is a couple of time markers here. On December 4th is when the mass resolution went into effect. And December 18th was when we began to vaccinate in this county. We've had some great, terrific successes in the vaccination arena. The governor lifts the executive order on March 5th, and then further it reverses this series of recommendations and restrictions that had been imposed by EO. What I want you to pay attention is to the fact that last week, for the first time in 10 weeks, the number of infections in Pima County actually went up. After a 10-week decline from this high water mark back on the first week of the year, for the first time since that first week of January, we have seen an increase. It's not a huge increase. We've gone from 463 cases to 479. We know that it's probably going to be further adjusted up just because of the reporting lag. So this is real, and this is concerning. And this is the reason why we cannot let up on mask mandates in Pima County. The other thing that I will share with you is that, again, after having a fairly extraordinary decrease in the number of deaths since about the third week in January, the week before last, we had the first increase in terms of the number of deaths. It was only one, but that person mattered to their family, and any loss of life, which is avoidable, is something that we need to mitigate against. So I'm going to shut up here and open it up for questions. The very last thing that I will do right before I do that, though, is to just remind you of a couple of things. That in terms of vaccination, we have been remarkably successful in this county. And we continue to build on that. We have vaccinated well over 455,873 individuals in this county, and that is more than 28% of the population. That's based on the state's own reckoning. That doesn't even include the folks in the state pod, so it's actually higher. So this is a good thing, but we cannot let off the pressure now. We cannot stop masking at this time because even though the gains that we're making in terms of vaccination are real and important and tremendous, we're also facing the threat of emergent variants. The one most notably here in Pima County would be the UK variant. So with that, I'm going to shut up and turn it over to Jason, who will facilitate.
Sure thing. We have a little less than 20 minutes in our time, so please, folks, keep your questions to one per person, and if you have a follow-up, we'll take care of it over email. First up is Bud Foster, followed by Nicole Ludden.
Dr. Garcia, thank you very much for doing this. I understand the medical or the health reasons why you've made this decision, but why do you think you can do this as an arm of the state? What exempts you from the governor's orders?
Really good question, and probably one that will need to be answered by the lawyers. Eventually, this opinion will be I'm sure that the board will consider releasing privilege so that we can share this opinion more broadly. But in short, Bud, just to sort of put it on the line, So we believe that the counties, as political subdivisions of the state, really derive our authority, public health and otherwise, from the legislature. And we believe that that entity, the state legislature, has granted specific authorities by statute, which allow us to take, when we deem it appropriate, more restrictive actions. So various statutes give counties broad authority to regulate the public health, and for counties to adopt provisions that are necessary to preserve the health of the county and to provide for the expenses thereof. That's ARS 11-251. There are also provisions that allow us to make and enforce all local police, sanitary, and other regulations that are not in conflict with the general law. And in general, that's ARS 11-251 -31, and to make regulations necessary for the public health and safety of our inhabitants. Furthermore, the Arizona Supreme Court held that the authority of the county health departments is coextensive with the Arizona Department of Health Services, and recognized that the counties may enact public health measures that are equal to or more restrictive than ADH. Bottom line, we believe that in this case, with regards to the mask mandates, this has been an overreach on the part of the executive. It's up to the legislature and not the governor to decide what authorities the counties are granted. And we believe that this specific resolution, which was enacted by our Board of Supervisors, continues to remain in effect and is indeed compliant with that.
Hey, Doc, real quick, if you could take us like a half a step back. We're hitting the bottom
sorry
half.
about that.
Yeah, there you go.
Is that better?
I believe so, yeah, that should work.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can hold it. Next up is Nicole, and followed by Jorge Encinas.
Hi, Dr. Garcia. So the city of Tucson made the same decision to keep its mask mandate in place, but we're still seeing a lot of businesses rescinding their mask mandates. So how will the county ensure these businesses aren't confused on what rules to follow here, and also that those rules are going to be enforced?
Well, that's always been the challenge, right? And ostensibly what the governor said in his press conference was, well, nobody's following these rules anyway, nobody's enforcing them anyway. Well, that's just not the truth. The health department has created a portal, and we are actively receiving complaints regarding a variety of things, but the proclamations, which are no longer essentially mooted by the governor's executive order, but specifically mask-related complaints, and those, we have a process for those complaints. We work with the operators, and we call them up and we say, we've received these kinds of complaints. We want to make sure that you are aware that this is the law of the land, that this is still in force. We then, if we continue to receive complaints, we then visit those different operators, and we continue to have those conversations. We continue to do that education. If we can have that happen a third time, that's when things start getting more serious, right? And that's when the Board of Supervisors resolution includes a provision for us issuing a notice of violation and a citation with a fine of up to $500. We have not had to take that action yet, but certainly it is something that it is within our capacity to do so. So we will continue to take an educational approach to this, but make no mistake, we also intend to use whatever enforcement capacity we have. We don't have a mask police. We are dependent on operators telling us and being adherent to the recommendations that we promulgate. And we are also dependent on folks sort of being cooperative with that. But where we can, that is when we go out to visit these establishments, you can be sure that we are looking for mask usage as part of the overall assessment that we're doing across our providers. Next question.
Next up is Jorge Encinas, followed by Brian Branham.
Hi, Dr. Garcia. So when it comes to areas like Sahuarita and Green Valley, does the health department have capability to do enforcement this far out, or is it going to focus within Tucson?
That's a really good question, Jorge. Our belief is that that as the public health authority, that our authority extends across the different incorporated and unincorporated parts of this county. And so our intent is to continue to do the same kind of enforcement that we've been doing all along with our incorporated partners, South Tucson, town of Oro Valley, Marana, and certainly the town of Sahuarita. So we believe that we do have the capacity to do this, and we intend to do so. Next question.
All right, next up is Brian Brennan, and then I believe we'll go to Valerie Cavazos.
Hi, Dr. Garcia. It sounds like Pima County is making a similar argument that we've heard before when it came to the curfew, which was ultimately overturned by a judge. What makes the mask mandate any different from that argument?
You're right. Some of the legal arguments here are very similar to that. We were enjoined from enforcing that mask mandate. Again, this is a fresh set of eyes looking at the same arguments. We believe that we stand on solid ground. Do we anticipate that we are going to be challenged on this? You know, absolutely. Bring it on. The truth is, though, that this does get at a fundamental concept, and that is that it's up to the legislature and not the governor to decide what authority a county does and does not have. And we believe that we are acting well within that authority. Other people are obviously do not see it exactly the same way. But we believe that is what we're doing, and we will act accordingly. And especially, Brian, especially because there's a damn good reason to not let up. You're hearing—
Dr. Garcia, sorry to interrupt. I'm being told to correct you. We were enjoined from enforcing the curfew, not the mandate.
Sorry, we're enjoined for enforcing the curfew. Sorry about that. I misspoke. So especially because Brian, we are seeing across the country that cases are starting to creep up. And in this county, it is a very small increase. But we definitely want to make sure that we get this under control. Aside from vaccination, the best thing that we have in our pocket is mask usage. So we're going to exercise that lever. We're going to exercise that tool in order to be able to protect the health and well-being of the citizens of this county. Next question.
All right, next up is Valerie Cavazos, followed by Paul Ingram.
Hi, Dr. Garcia. I'm going to shift a little bit over to the vaccinations, and it's particularly with FEMA. Now that that is moving forward, can you tell me what the staffing levels are within the Pima County Health Department? Are you going to be hiring more people? Do you have, and I know we had discussed this before, but are your levels where you need them to be?
Valerie, that's a really good question. A couple of things to sort of make sure that we are all on the same page. One of the nice things about this FEMA arrangement, and we're still very early on in those conversations and trying to figure out how to get this executed. One of the very nice things about this FEMA pod arrangement is that they come with all their own staffing. And so I don't anticipate that we would be hiring new people. Yes, we are engaging contractors who we already have on board, perhaps to expand some of the things that we're doing in order that we're planning on doing. But right now it's a little premature for me to give you too many details because we're painfully still in that early planning phase. But I believe that we have the resources, the human resources, the technical resources, the infrastructure to be very successful. We've proven that we could do it at TMC, at Banner South. We've proven that we could do this at TCC. We have put the show on the road in a variety of mobile community settings. We have done this in partnership with our federally qualified health centers, Marana, United Community Health Center, El Rio, Desert Sanita. We are delivering vaccine very efficiently. We believe we have the tools, the experience, the resources, the knowledge to get the job done once we have vaccine in place and once we have the benefit of that federal personnel on site. I'll take the next question.
All right, next up is Paul Ingram, followed by Tim Stellar.
Hey, Dr. Garcia, thanks again for having these. Can you talk a little bit more about the importance of masks and how it relates to the variants of COVID-19 that we're starting to see in the county and in the state?
Well, one of the things that's a little bit scary about these variants, which should give us all pause, is are they actually more transmissible? Is it, if all things being equal, if you're in contact with somebody who has the wild type, normal garden variety COVID, and you're in contact with somebody who has the UK variant, which one would you, and at the same distance for the same duration, are you more likely to get sick from one versus the other? Some of the science is not settled science yet, Paul, and I wouldn't represent it that way, but there is really good information that suggests that it is a more transmissible variant. And additionally, there's emerging information that potentially it is a more harmful variant, i.e. maybe associated with more hospitalization, more serious disease, potentially even more death. Again, some of this still is not settled science. Some of this is still emerging information. When we look at the South African and the Brazilian Manaus variants, again, not settled science, but look to be very, very concerning. One of the really silver linings here, though, is that the same kinds of mitigation measures that allow us to prevent transmission for the normal garden variety COVID are going to be the same ones that allow us to prevent transmission with these potentially more infectious, more transmissible variants. So doing things like staying 6 feet apart from other people and wearing masks, and staying home when you're sick and not being around people who are outside of your household, those continue to be really, really important things to get done. And so we'll continue to emphasize that, and in particular, the whole issue of face coverings, which I believe have been a game changer in this county, and has been an initiative that was supported by the board. I think is worth fighting for. Next question.
All right, next up is Tim Stiller, followed by Mark Manguro. We have a little less than 5 minutes of our time.
Sorry, I muted myself after unmuting myself. Dr. Garcia, what you see a lot of people these days, especially the university area, where there are a lot of young people getting out to the bars, getting out to the restaurants. There's kind of like this pent-up spring fever that's being let loose. So what effect is the mixed message of the governor removing all restrictions having when you also are trying to retain some restrictions and caution people? I mean, are you kind of just basically holding back the tide here, and how is that going to work over the long run?
So the question you're asking is a really good one. Are we simply sticking our finger in a dike, right, that is eventually going to break? Tim, the truth is that I need to buy time. Pima County needs to buy enough time for us to get greater penetration and vaccine coverage. So yes, it is a mixed message that we are fighting against. Yes, it is unfortunate that the governor has taken this action, which other people are interpreting as the pandemic is over. The governor said so. That's how people are hearing it, and it does put us in a bit of a pickle. But again, this does not have to last forever. And if we can just get folks to continue to adhere to these fairly relatively easy measures for another 2-3 months, we will be able to have achieved a level of vaccination that really allows this community to take a deep breath. But we're not there yet. We are not there yet. And we cannot pretend that the behaviors that we're engaged in public don't impact the health and well-being of others. I'll take the next question.
All right, we have just over 2 minutes, so Mark Lindura, you get the last question.
Yeah, Dr. Garcia, this weekend, there was a lot of happy people out there, citizens and business owners saying they're happy they don't have to fight with their customers anymore. People out that, have been vaccinated or not, happy to not have to wear a mask again, per the governor. What is your message to try to convince people to think, you know what, the Pima County Health Department is right. We do need to keep putting these masks on for the next 2 to 3 months, like you said.
I have been accused of being a fun sponge, and part of my job is to make sure that we are making the best decisions based on the available science. I think that the main message I want to convey, Mark, is that this is not forever. That what we're asking people to be adherent to is not something that they're going to need to necessarily be adherent to for years and years. But we do need to have people achieve good levels of adherence with these recommendations, at least until we achieve a level of community immunity, at least until we get about a 75% vaccine penetration in our vaccine coverage in our population. I know that feels onerous. I know that feels tiring. I know that everybody is sick of it. I'm sick of it. But the trade-offs are very serious, and the deaths and the cases and the hospitalizations are real. We cannot pretend that it is business as usual, because as the curve that I showed you, even with all the improvements that we've had in terms of the pandemic, we still have more cases than the number of cases that we reported on Memorial Day week. So we are far from being done with this, but the end is in sight. And we need to focus on the fact that there is an end in sight, and that it will not be forever. My expectation is, if we want to have a normal fall, we need to invest now in terms of mitigation and vaccination, so that we can get to that place. I'm going to end my comments there. I super appreciate you guys always sort of being so responsive and so quick to get on these, and I appreciate your assistance. Our goal here isn't to fight with the governor or fight with the state. Our goal is to try to do the best thing that we know how to do for the people of Pima County. And so we will continue to do that. And we hope that we will have a healthier community because of that. Thank you so much, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you all.